Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Welcome home, everybody. Today, we're going to be doing a spoiler review and discussion for the new movie called They Will Kill You, which came out in 2026. If one of your problems in life right now include just having nobody to talk to about movies and you're desperately trying to find that one person you can connect to over films and cinema, well, guess what, guys? You have finally found the right place and the right home here at ZakIsCinema, so please consider joining here because that is exactly what we're going to be doing today. I am so happy to say that I did not watch any trailers or marketing for this movie. I only really ever saw the poster for it and then some discussions online just saying this looked eerily similar to Ready or Not. So I guess I went in with the expectations of, okay, another kind of Ready or Not-ish style spin-off movie. So I didn't really have the highest expectations. I just kind of went in thinking it was going to be a pretty familiar concept, but I am so happy to say, spoiler for my reviews, I guess, but it ended up exceeding my expectations and made this way more enjoyable of an experience, kind of going in not really knowing a whole lot about it. So with that said, let's jump into the review section, starting with the positives or just the things that I enjoyed most about this movie. And I'm going to start with something that's a little bit different than my normal structure here, just because if I make this point first, it'll kind of flow a little bit better for the rest of my review. But I'm going to start off with a positive with a minor nitpick here. I was actually really impressed and excited with this movie's inciting incident, especially how strong the movie's setup really was. The movie picks up with our characters of Asia and Maria. As we later learn on, they are on the run from their abusive father. And then it leads to this inciting incident scene where the father finds his two daughters here, has them in this type of predicament, and it leads to Asia actually shooting her father. And then as soon as she does that, the police are literally right around the corner. The father is grabbing onto Maria's foot, and Asia kind of has this predicament where she needs to make a quick second decision, and she ends up just going off of her basic instinct and running as soon as the police show up. So I think it's intense. It really sets things into motion here, and it definitely sets up a nice, interesting arc for the character. A big emotional scene right off from the beginning and kind of gives us some complex characters here. My only minor nitpick with the movie's opening is some of the logic behind it. It kind of felt like Asia could have explained to the police officer the specific situation, especially given the circumstances here, which kind of make her decision to run feel like a little forced. Like, the movie sets up your expectations like she only had these two options, but I think with the predicament she was in, there was that middle option of just explaining. Maybe she didn't want to get caught with an illegal firearm or something. Maybe that was the concern, but I feel like if you're running away from your abusive father, you explain that to the police, maybe slightly less jail time, and then things would have been okay for the sister characters, and she would have saved her sister from torment from her father. Instead, that is not the decision she makes, which I think is okay, but then it also kind of makes her kind of come off as a bit harsh, especially since she promises her younger sister Maria 2 minutes earlier that she would never leave her, and then the first chance she gets, she leaves her. So that said, I don't think it ruins the character whatsoever. It actually adds this level of flawed character that I do appreciate and can really get behind. Just the execution really could have been slightly adjusted to make this decision feel a little bit more natural. For example, maybe kind of having her shoot the father, then the girls are on the run and the police are chasing after them, and then they grab the younger sister and she just kind of keeps on running. So I think that little twist could have really improved that arc and that character moment. But like I said, it's a positive with a nitpick because I do like the setup, and they get leads to plenty of awesome scenes, which we'll get into here. So after that inciting incident, I really love where we find the older sister character of Asia. All these years later, I believe it jumps about 10 years in the future right after that. She is standing in front of this very secretive Manhattan hotel, applying and showing up for this maid job. And the setting here immediately gives off this eerie, higher class, dangerous vibe, almost like this horror and supernatural version of the Continental Hotel from the John Wick universe. You can instantly tell when Asia shows up here that she is also running from something, and we have 10 years of lore to catch up with her, which I think makes her a very intriguing character right away. And then the setting, which the story takes place, is also very compelling as well. I think the editing and especially the sound design here are genuinely strong elements. There's an early scene when Asia kind of gets into the hotel, is sleeping in her room, kind of thinking she heard something from one of the air vents, and she is sitting in her bed just staring at the vents, continuously flicking this Zippo lighter, and you continue to hear that subtle metallic click echoing throughout the space. It's quiet, incredibly tense, and just that small little detail really highlights some of the best strengths in this movie. I think another great moment here with the editing and sound design is when she is finally asleep later on in that scene. We see somebody trying to get into her door, but she blocked it with a chair. And then we follow with the camera inside the hotel room this guy crawling through the air vents and the tunnel systems throughout her wall. And we don't see the character's POV, we just see the wall and kind of following the sound as the camera kind of slowly moves throughout the environment. And you just continue to hear this unsettling crawl with this excellent sound design here. All while our main character here is asleep and completely unaware of what's actually going on. It just builds tension in very effective, very creative kind of ways. And speaking of the sound design, editing, and style of this movie, all those praises are before we even get into the first action scene, which this is exactly why I'm happy I didn't see the trailer. I had no idea it was going to be this style of action, carnage, and violence. It is easily one of the biggest highlights I could say for this film. All the action and adventure here is visceral, over the top, sometimes corny, but done in a way that tonally really works. The frantic camera work and chaotic energy really pulls you into all the action scenes and makes them feel overly intense without feeling overly kind of polished. And I love that it's one of these movies that you kind of get that first act twist, which then also introduces a genre shift as well within the first 20 to 30 minutes. We find out that the hotel staff have all, I guess, sold their souls to the devil, and they are running this secretive hotel because they are required to make human sacrifices in order to live for eternity, which is already a somewhat decent strong hook here, but then the added twist as well that everyone in the hotel has already basically done this sacrifice and are already immortal and can also regenerate no matter the way that they were killed. I love seeing how this was executed because seeing the bodies kind of come back together, regenerate, creates so many creative and very memorable moments for myself. The best way I could describe the vibe and the tone of this film here is like a mix of the movie You're Next, The Evil Dead, throw in there some Quentin Tarantino editing and Sam Raimi camera work. All of that very mixed together, very chaotic, stylish, and it doesn't take itself very seriously, which is the perfect tone to go for something like this. I also love that this movie feels so authentically low budget. It clearly has enough money to pull off the action, adventure, effects, and violence that it wants to go for, but it still has that almost passion project energy where you can feel the creativity behind every scene. It has this nice film grain look to it, so I just loved looking at the screen throughout this movie's runtime here. The majority of the practical effects are a standout to me. There's some use of CGI, which, I might get into here, but overall, I think it was really well done. There's a moment where there's this disembodied eyeball that is following and rolling after our character of Asia through tunnels because of the regeneration concept. It actually works within this world. It's gross, it's cringy, it also kind of makes you laugh, which is the perfect combination for a scene I'm just describing. The blood splatter effects are done to perfection. You get these blood spatter packets where it's just like a burst pipe of blood. It's messy, excessive, very physical, and you just don't see that used all that often. I also think the backstory and sister dynamic between our character of Asia and Maria is handled very well because the movie never really pauses to continue to overdo it. It gives you just enough to kind of understand their relationship, their sister dynamic, and to care about them without stopping to overly explain everything. Not trying to compare it to Ready or Not or Ready or Not 2, but I feel like with Ready or Not 2, it kind of got into that redundant feel where the movie would pause every 2 minutes for the sisters to fight about their relationship. It re-explained their relationship and it became very redundant. But with this movie, it keeps things moving, which really helps with the pacing, and it honestly feels like a very tight, high energy concept and almost like this hour-long short film in the best way possible. There's also a couple of huge standout action sequences that really hit for me. The initial hotel fight, when I realized the movie I was getting into is amazing because it reveals everything and the action is just really well done here. There's this fire axe sequence where our character of Asia lights her axe on fire and just starts fucking dudes up. Huge highlight there. These scenes kind of blend styles from Kill Bill, John Wick, The Raid, and The Evil Dead, creating something very chaotic but very intentional. And even though it might be slightly predictable, I do like the third act twist here where we find out that Maria has already agreed to make a sacrifice because this hotel people kind of took her in, and we find out that she has to kill someone that evening, which could be her sister or else she is going to die, and that it connects back to Asia in that way. It adds a nice layer of tension and stakes between the two characters, and again, isn't overly done, but provides a nice momentum for the third act here. And the ending, complete final boss fight really worked for me. It goes complete full chaos mode within the hotel. We eventually see the hotel people summoning Satan into this pig's head that is on a stake, and Maria is then being forced between sacrificing Asia or dying herself. Instead, the character of Maria decides to write Asia's name on top of the pig's head and then sacrifices herself, which is a simple, predictable, but very effective emotional payoff for that sequence. And then after that, Asia goes complete full revenge mode against the hotel cult, and the final fight with the main hotel lady as she puts on the chopped off pig's head with Satan in it just to summon the powers of Satan within herself and get that demonic energy and demonic power is completely over the top, but in such an amazing way. This CGI can be kind of iffy, but the tone of the movie really makes it work. The style of the action just makes it really work work for me, and it just leans into the insanity of this premise that I just had a complete blast watching it and could not take my eyes off the screen here. Because honestly, I can't remember the last time I just had so much fun with a movie, not in a super immersive, lose yourself and forget about the outside world kind of way, but that pure, chaotic, entertaining way where it doesn't demand a lot from you, yet it fills the experience with energy and enjoyment. So with that said, let's jump over to my mixed element I have for this movie. This is kind of a minor nitpick too, but I do love how the movie has so many fantastic sequences of utilizing the hotel's walls and tunnel systems, especially as a part of scene sequences and its setting. It gives the environment a lot of personality and really kind of fleshes it out. But at the same time, I kind of wish we saw and experienced more of the hotel itself. They mention at one point that there are different floors in the hotel. There's a whole section of the hotel where each floor represents a different vice people engage into, and we only see one of them. And I thought that was a big missed opportunity here because it could have been way more interesting to explore more of that throughout the movie, and you could have done something where each floor has this distinct style, action kind of style. Visually, you could have kind of changed it up. So I feel like that was a slight missed opportunity that left me kind of feeling a little frustrated. But with that said, let's jump over to the negatives, or the things that I just didn't really like about this movie. And I think the biggest weakness for me is that even though the story is serviceable and works, I think the story, when I go back and think about it, and the hotel lore and the demonic side of things, was a bit of a letdown. I think the lore behind the hotel and its connection to Satan is pretty basic and doesn't really add a whole lot. Like, there's nothing really else revealed there that makes you go like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And again, I'm not trying to directly compare it to Ready or Not or its sequel, but when you have these movies come out within 2 weeks, it's kind of hard not to compare them, because you have a group here where it functions like a family, very similar to Ready or Not, all tied together through this devil worshipping cult similar to Ready or Not, making sacrifices for power and eternal life. It just kind of started for me to feel a little familiar and at times a bit redundant. And even on its own, the story is fairly straightforward here, and I felt like there was moments or things they could have done to add a bit more depth. The hotel's overall plan and end goal aren't really explored enough, and because of that, the narrative side of the movie doesn't feel as strong as the style, action, and creativity that it is packaged in. Even despite that, I would say overall, for the movie They Will Kill You, well, the story and lore feel a bit generic and familiar at times. This movie makes up for it with its wild, energetic action, creative practical effects, and chaotic, low-budget charm that makes it an insanely fun ride from start to finish. So for my rating for this movie, I would say that this is a movie I'd like to buy and add to my physical media collection, because I'd love rewatching this. I'd love showing people this. I don't know if I'd pay that full price for it. Maybe I would if there was this really cool Steelbook limited edition version, but for the most part, I'd probably wait until it's reduced from its full price, or I could find it on sale somewhere. So you guys have my thoughts here on the new movie They Will Kill You. Please let me know down below if you checked this movie out. What were your thoughts and feelings? Do you agree with my thoughts and feelings, or do you completely differ on my thoughts and feelings? I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts and feelings down below. But that's about it. I appreciate anybody watching my videos, so thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.